Recently, Elon Musk has proposed to take Twitter private. He's willing to buy all the shares for $54.20. And this is good news for Twitter shareholders, because the truth is they have actually been receiving subpar value from their stock for a long period of time. This is a premium over the current price. Now, I think that the board of directors of Twitter should definitely approve of Elon Musk's desire to take over the entire company and take that price. Elon Musk actually thinks that the shareholders should decide, but that's not how it works. The board of directors will decide. Now, what happens if they say no? And they probably will say no. There actually is a plan B, he said. Now, the plan B is pretty obvious. I think that he would just keep buying more and more shares until he actually gets 50% of ownership over Twitter, and then he could fire the board of directors, and then he could actually control the whole company that way. That would actually be the best reason. Now, why should Elon Musk actually take over Twitter? It would be a fantastic thing for so many reasons. For one thing, Twitter is a $36 billion company, whereas Facebook is at $606 billion. And that shows that Twitter, despite having so much influence, is pretty undervalued. They really have been focused far too much on running this company from a political mindset. I mean, they make political decisions instead of actually making business decisions. And I think that has cost them, because if your company is based upon having public discussions, and their whole goal up until now has been to eliminate or censor half the people, it really has been bad for the conversation. And that means that it has actually limited the upside potential of the stock. I think Elon Musk is brilliant in the sense that he wants to buy the whole company up. He would get rid of a lot of the censorship on the site, and it would actually cause, at least in theory, more people to join, because they would actually like the fact that they could actually express their view. They wouldn't be shadow banned and censored, and so that would put the value much higher. The truth is, with the current leadership of Twitter, it's not possible for the stock to rise, because they just are not willing to commit to a policy that would actually allow for the stock to rise. You get what I'm saying? They just are against free speech, and that's bad for business. It shows maybe in the beginning some users might actually like the censorship, but in the long run there's a lot of people who don't like that policy and have chosen not to be on there, or one of the people they kicked off the site was their top user. He had I think 80 or 90 million followers, and if with him not being there, it means there's less interaction, and then there's less ads that you're showing to people. So that's a bad decision too. Now, the other great reason why Elon Musk should be taking over Twitter instead of creating an alternative like Parler or Truth Social or Getter, or instead of going down that outlet by creating a new alternative site for social media, he's doing the right thing by trying to buy out Twitter, because more people are on Twitter than these alternative sites. It's nice to think in theory, hey, I'll create a new site, but the truth is that Twitter is still very, very dominant. So if you can control Twitter, you are controlling the dominant way that people are communicating. So it makes far more sense to concentrate on buying up what is already dominant. It's just the nature of how people are. For instance, Google tried to create their own video service originally. You might not know this, but Google did not always own YouTube. They did not invent YouTube either. It was originally an independent site, and then Google eventually realized, hey, you know what? We're not going to be able to compete by creating our own. We have to buy out YouTube. And so in a similar way, Elon Musk is brilliant for not saying, hey, I want to create my own independent site for microblogging. That doesn't work. You have to go with what is dominant, and that's Twitter, so he should buy that out. Another counterproductive policy that Twitter has that Elon Musk doesn't like is shadow banning. This means that topics that Twitter management doesn't like, they take efforts to make sure it doesn't go viral. But here's the big problem with that. Those topics might be things that generate a lot of public attention, which would mean a lot more ad revenue, because the more eyeballs you have looking at a certain topic, the better it is. And it should, the algorithm should be based upon promoting what people are actually interested in. See, the problem is, if the management of Twitter is artificially pumping up things that they think is interesting, but the vast majority of people on the planet don't find interesting, that's going to hurt ad revenue, because you're artificially lowering the number of people who are seeing ads. And that's really a dumb policy, because your whole goal is to be saying, look, people find this interesting, we don't, but you know what, we have to act in the best interest of our of the customers. The customer is always right. They want to see a certain topic and they want to discuss it, and that's going to be good for the business too, because then there's going to be a lot more ads. But Twitter instead has thought, you shouldn't be allowed to discuss that, and we think you're too dumb to know the truth, so we're going to downplay this topic, pump this other topic up, and then fewer people are going to be interested, and there are going to be less ads. So I think that that's a counterproductive policy of Twitter. I think Elon Musk is committed to getting rid of that. Another great policy that I think Elon Musk wants to engage in is he wants everybody to have a check mark, but they're going to have to pay $3 a month if they want it. But in the process, he said it would allow people to also set their profile so they don't want to see anything unless it's a check mark, because that would mean that it's a genuine person, it's not spam. So you couldn't have spammers on there, because spammers wouldn't want to pay $3, because they would also have to prove that they're a real person too. That's so basically it would be very hard, or if not impossible, to have spam on the site, because they just would not be able to complete the real authentication process, prove that they're a real person. The benefit of taking Twitter completely 100% private is that it would allow Elon Musk to focus on what is wrong with the site without having to deal with activist shareholders, and it also would allow him to enforce strict policies on the employees there, because employees seem to be running the show. There's a very decentralized way this company is operating, where employees seem like they've taken it over and they could just do what they want. I think he would say, you know what, we're going to be in the business of public communication. If you don't like that, you're out of here. And so he's going to be very strict about not wasting company resources, because he would own 100% of it. Now, of course, that would mean a lot of people would not have the benefit of actually owning it at that point, but I have a feeling he might have an IPO once again once he's fixed it. Of course, Twitter might be worth 10 times more by the time that he would consider selling it once again. Anyway, this is just my view that I see better days ahead for Twitter as a company, and for people who own Twitter stock, it might be the last chance you have the chance to own it, because eventually he will own 100% of it. I think that will be a huge benefit over the relatively small company that it is today. And it's small just because it's run very poorly. Let's see what Danny thinks about Twitter going private.
I think there's a good chance on 420 Elon Musk is going to troll Twitter by selling all of his stake, but that's just my speculation, so don't trade on that. But there's a very good chance that I think that might happen.
Yeah, some people probably think that this is a joke of his. I honestly don't. I really do believe that he's committed towards free speech, and he just doesn't really, because he is one of the few people who has actually had millions and millions of followers, and he is not woke. He is for the free speech on the side. He thinks that is being heavily damaged by the current management and board of directors who are running Twitter. And Twitter is amazingly influential, despite the fact that it is a relatively small company in terms of a tech company. So I think that there are better days ahead for Twitter, especially because a lot of these companies have become lazy. They think that they could just operate the way they do and censor people, and they know that these other sites are not working. Getter isn't big, Truth Social isn't very big, Parler, it doesn't work very well. All these things, they have not been able to compete very well with Twitter. And so the sad truth is, the only way to fix this is to buy Twitter out. That's my view. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click the subscribe button and like it, and I'll see you in the next video.